Brian Callahan might be in Tennessee, but the Bengals, they have a new offensive coordinator. I'll give you details and my thoughts on that right now on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapien of allbengals.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, so you get all of our videos, including this one when there's breaking news. And the breaking news, it's pretty simple. Bengals quarterbacks coach Dan Pitcher, well, he is the new offensive coordinator for your Cincinnati Bengals. It's something that we all thought would happen. The Bengals interviewed multiple candidates over the past couple of days. Dan Pitcher was always the favorite. And even though he received interest from the Patriots and received interest from the Raiders and multiple teams throughout the league, he looked at this situation in Cincinnati, said that's where he wanted to be. They wanted him here. And to me, this move makes too much sense. And look, I get it. Some of you wanted Joe Brady. Others were talking about, different big named offensive coordinators. But I keep coming back to a clip from last year. And it was January 27th of last year, ahead of the AFC Championship game, when Joe Burrow was asked about Dan Pitcher.
It seems like you've got a really good relationship with Dan Pitcher. You guys have similar personalities. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say that. And I think that's why we mesh so well in the meeting room and on the sideline. We have a great working relationship. And, really I say this all the time, but I couldn't ask for a better group of coaches for my skill set and for what I do.
That's Joe Burrow on Dan Pitcher. And I can tell you that's not the only time Joe has complimented Dan Pitcher. That's the one that I remembered, that I found, and that we used. The point is he believes in Dan Pitcher. And Pitcher has served as the Bengals quarterbacks coach since 2020, so since Joe Burrow was drafted. So there's trust there. There's a relationship there. And I understand some concern about, it would be nice to get a new set of eyes on things. I do get that. I also think that when you look at Pitcher and you see that the demand was there for him, there were multiple teams hoping to land him as their offensive coordinator. And that's what the Raiders were hoping to do. Heck, Marvin Lewis is in Las Vegas. He's the one who brought Dan Pitcher to Cincinnati on his staff from Indianapolis back in 2016, I believe it was. And so the fact that, one, he stuck around and was the assistant quarterbacks coach in 2019, Zac Taylor's first season, behind Alex Van Pelt, and then, two, has worked his way up and gained the trust. And he's the guy that walks out with Joe Burrow every single game. And if you follow me on Instagram or you follow me on TikTok, those videos of Burrow walking out, well, you see Dan Pitcher there. There is a trust there. There's a trust built with Zac as well. And that matters. Just because Zac calls the plays doesn't mean that that's the only thing that goes into this offense. And maybe I'm in the minority now. I think it's a pretty good offense. And I think they have plenty of room to grow and plenty of tweaks to make. And I think Dan Pitcher is someone that can help them make them. But I like this hire. I think it makes sense for a bunch of reasons. And the fact that it's familiar, the fact that there's a built-in relationship, those things matter. And they matter because usually when these teams, you talk about championship windows, when things get rocky, it's when you lose an OC. And it gets a little rockier. And you got to overcome that. Well, there are going to be growing pains, but they shouldn't be too many growing pains now with this staff shakeup. Now, what happens to the quarterbacks coach? Well, since Dan Pitcher was the quarterbacks coach and now he's the OC, I would expect Brad Cragthorpe, who was the assistant to Dan Pitcher last year, I would expect him to move into that position. And it was really smart by Zac Taylor. Sort of structured it the same way he did with Pitcher and Alex Van Pelt in 2019. He put Cragthorpe and moved him to assistant quarterbacks coach, and he was a quarterback at LSU, moved him to quarterbacks coach, was working with the wide receivers previously, but this past season he made that move, knowing either Dan Pitcher's going to get hired somewhere and you're going to need a quarterbacks coach, or Brian Callahan will get a head coaching job and you'll elevate Pitcher. So this worked out really well. The nightmare scenario would have been last year if Pitcher would have gotten a job, an OC job, say in Tampa Bay, the one he interviewed with, and then you lose Callahan this year. Instead, that's not the case. The built-in plan that I think Zac Taylor had in place to start grooming these guys for that next step, it has worked. And I don't anticipate any other staff shakeups. I know some were wondering about Frank Pollock. I expect Frank Pollock to be the offensive line coach. Now, Could someone call Frank and want to interview him? Maybe, but I don't think that that's going to be a thing because, well, it would be for an offensive line coach position. I doubt they would promote him to another area. He's an offensive lineman at heart. That's what he's looking for. Troy Walters is a name to watch. It's someone that could get offensive coordinator interviews, and he was someone that I think would have been a contender, certainly, had Dan Pitcher not worked out. I think Troy Walters might have been one of the favorites because he's really respected in the building, really smart football mind, and has helped develop T. Higgins. Jamar Chase obviously has helped develop Andre Osavash and Charlie Jones, some of these young guys as well. So as we look at this Bengals staff, I think the staff is good. I know there are some people that think the staff stinks. And they went 9-8 last year, and their star quarterback got hurt. And they had a lead on the Ravens when he got hurt. Like, I don't want to overreact too much. So I think this move does make sense. And I don't know who they could have gotten. Like, I'll go back to the Joe Brady thing. Joe Brady is not available as of right now. It's that simple. He's not. Now, could Sean McDermott get fired? I guess there's a chance that could happen, but that has not happened. So that's where we sit. That's where it is. And other than that, I'm looking to make sure that there's no notifications. And there's not. That's about the NFC Championship game. So you never know. This time of year, you always check to make sure. But your new offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals is Dan Pitcher. We will have more on this right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm sure we'll get Zac Taylor's reaction in the coming days. I'm sure we will get Dan Pitcher's reaction to being named offensive coordinator. And Brian Callahan, by the way, officially named head coach of the Tennessee Titans. They will introduce him on Thursday afternoon. That's going to do it for now. Make sure you check out Enter the Jungle. This week's episode was a lot of fun. We talked about, Andrew and I discussed how the Bengals could address their biggest needs. Draft, free agency, both. And it was a lot of fun. Plus, why there's no way in hell I would root for the Baltimore Ravens this weekend. For Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching Cincinnati Bengals Talk.